Breaking news, breaking news. This is RH going live at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time about 30 minutes ago. Got word that uh, Israel began strategic strikes against the IRGC positions in Iran. They started it up, the strikes, and they're calling it a preemptive strike. So they probably have intel that they were moving like fuel to certain types of missile systems or whatever, and starting them up, and so to get out in front of the attack on Israel. That's my opinion. Okay, remember there are 8 hours and 30 minutes ahead of our time, as far as Eastern Standard Time. So that would put them around 11:30 a.m. in the morning. I think there's a lot of people out there that what were not expecting a strike to occur uh, in daylight. We were expecting like an ODART 30 strike with basically stealth aircraft. It doesn't mean that they didn't use stealth aircraft, but it seems to be me. This is my opinion that the experts were basically their intel was showing movement from the IRGC that was positioning to attack Israel. So that's the reason why I believe they're calling it a preemptive strike. And I think it was more of a defensive posture, a reaction, okay, or what do you call it? So we're talking about that terminology the other day. I've been talking about that terminology. They were being reactive against the active positioning of IRGC members and other players in that theater. Let's just say in the theater in Iran, that they were about to wage an attack on Israel, and it looks to appear that they were going to attack in broad daylight. So that basically they decided, the leaders of Israel decided that they couldn't take any chances to help safeguard their people, which includes American citizens that are there in Israel, living there in Israel, or working in Israel. That includes them as well. Now, if you notice, uh, the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, he basically put out a email to all workers, basically um, non. What do you call that? There's non, um, like the people that aren't really needed. I mean, you know what I mean? They're like extra, like non-essential. That's the term. Okay, so bear with me. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I did a live stream last night that was 3 hours long, and I was thinking, it was going to probably happen around the Iranian time, around uh, after 6 p.m. their time on the 28th of February. But it appears to me that Israel took a preemptive strike, a measure to protect the citizens of Israel. So this was the intel that was given, spread amongst our allies to basically understand there was, it was serious. And President Trump, I believe, made the case, you couldn't reveal too much what's going on because that would be an OPSEC violation. And, they're waiting for anything that Trump does wrong, and they blow it up out of proportion, you know, and playing their stupid games at times like this. Now, a large portion of the live stream that I had last night on this channel uh, talked about the Iranian involvement in the Beirut bombing, which killed over 200 of our. I think it killed over 300 people. We're talking about the bomb the suicide bombing that took place at the Beirut barracks, where we were conducting a peacekeeping mission. Those were blue helmets in Lebanon, basically protecting the airport, whatever. So, anyways, to allow humanitarian aid to get into the people that were victims of the war, victims of circumstance. So now those ayatollahs, those leaders have been in charge since I think it was 1977. I remember it very well. They call it the Iranian oil crisis, and we were having to get rations for gasoline, and basically a lot of our businesses were taken down because the seasonal business and people coming in from like Canada up in the northern states during the season, they normally come in around November time frame, around Thanksgiving, and they leave about 3 or 4 months later. Some of them do, go back to their homes, so this is kind of like a winter haven for the northerners coming down. We call it snowbirds. It's not a what do you call it? Some type of bad name or something, but we know them as snowbirds. They're coming down, they're flocking down from the north and spending their time where it's warm in places like Florida. In Florida, sometimes you can go to the beach. Actually, I was at the beach in Florida, Green Key Beach. Wasn't much. I was kind of disappointed. I think the hurricanes eroded all the nice beach fronts, whatever you call them. But anyways, so the strike, yes, good to see you, Ken. Yeah, I haven't been to sleep yet. I was going through this and watching it, and it popped up, and I thought, okay, it might have been, a previous strike that Iran was taking on. Israel was taking on Iran, months ago or whatever. But it was like, 8 minutes ago, my time. When I first saw it, it was right around 11 o'clock in the morning. 11 o'clock in the morning in Iran time, but they are 8 hours and 30 minutes ahead of us in Iran. So 8 hours and 30 minutes, that would put them about 11:37 a.m. in the morning. And this is kind of like a first. So this must have been so urgent for them to start the attack. And I don't believe they were going to plan the attack in broad daylight. I believe they were going to wait. Now, was that some of the tactics that Russia and China basically recommend they do? Start the stage, make movement, draw them out in the daytime. Was that a tactic that Iran basically took that was recommended to them by Russia and China? I don't know. But listen, their fingerprints on a lot of this stuff, to include funding, weaponizing Iran, and behind the scenes, those are Russia, China, and North Korea are all nuclear armed countries, which is common sense, right? So all this talk about Iran enriching uranium to make their own, like warheads to fit on their ballistic missile systems that they already have. See, they've been playing these little tricks with the West, right? All this time. A state sponsor of terrorism, basically evading sanctions because they have allies that basically are anti towards the United States and towards the West. They're anti-West. They're communist, Marxist, fascist, communist or Marxist, whatever, socialist, however you want to identify them. This antithetical to our U.S. Constitution. is antithetical to our sovereignty. And basically, I won't go into any further than that, far as the politics are concerned. But you just can't trust them. These people have been terrorists for all these years. Going back to 77, whatever, whenever they took over Iran, they destroyed that country. They destroyed that country. And those poor people over in Iran, I really feel for them because they're victims of circumstance. And we saw all the propaganda the Mockingbird media puts out about the Shah of Iran, the former Shah of Iran, and how he was such a dictator, how bad he was. But every time I looked up the information from like live recorded video footage that you could go and watch like on YouTube. Every time I looked at whenever the Shah was basically in his convoy, whatever, his driving through the cities, all I saw was a bunch of Iranians, men, women, and children, standing on the sides of the road, right, waving as the Shah drove by, showing their support. That's all I saw. So let me see. Hopefully we're still live here. I'm gonna have to keep a real close eye on this live stream this morning. So if y'all don't mind sharing this information, I appreciate it. Share the live stream. I'm going live on both YouTube and Rumble. So I'm going to go there and check Rumble real quick here. And yes, yeah, Ken, that's unbelievable. You're still up, or what time is it over in your neck of the woods? Man, I tell you, it took me a long time for that place card hold video to basically load up. Okay, 12 minutes ago, bombs will be dropping everywhere. Trump addressed the strikes on Iran. So it's breaking in Fox News. So that was 12 minutes ago. So it's already out there, right? So go check it out. Make sure you take a look at that place card holder video if it's still up. There's a Colonel, dang, if I can remember his name now. Turner, I believe is his last name. I thought I could correct that another time. He's a pilot. I served with him. And there's really some information in there I think people have to be aware of. So now there's already the sirens are going off, and they've already basically started positioning themselves right before the strike into the bomb shelters and that kind of thing, or being close to them where they can get to them in time as soon as the air raid warning sirens go off. And they've already gone off in Iran. Now they're looking at a huge type of Iranian suicide drones to be used, and of course the ballistic missiles. They're going to be trying to unload all of their weapons against Israel, and probably try to target U.S. forces in the area, and it's not going to be pretty. And these fools over in Iran, they played their stupid games right all the way up to the end. They missed the chance of probably the best deal they would ever have, and now it's over. The deal making is over. They rattled their what do you call it, sabers. They waved their sabers in the air, and all that stuff all the way to the very end. How foolish can you be? And then amongst all the saber rattling, when we're trying to make a deal with the president of the United States, he's the guy to make a deal with. Believe me, those people could have stayed in power. Whether they stay in power or not after these strikes, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But basically, from what I see, Israel took a preemptive, and that's what they're calling it, preemptive strike on the IRGC positions and other strategic targets that help support them. You know, so this is going to be a very precise strikes against those targets to try to minimize innocent civilians from being killed in this attack. So remember, this is in broad daylight now. People are going to work still. Now, I don't know if they started basically, if they are going to work in Iran. The good people that are just trying to survive through all this stuff, you know, and so I don't really know what the status is, you know, because there's not really free press over there in Iran. So it's very selective press what the IRGC or the Ayatollah allows to be released in the far as the media from their country. So now there's a T minus. Okay, there's a T minus. That's all I'm going to say. Avatar photograph. I put that up there for a reason. Okay, this morning. So it doesn't have anything to do with the strikes, but we're talking about quantum navigation technology with the X-37 space plane that we have. That's basically that's Q level technology, Q level type secrets. And if you see the flight characteristics of some of these, what they call UFOs, that defies gravity or whatever, or physics, or that kind of thing. So I want people to pay attention to the X-37 top secret space plane. And remember, we were basically informed about that. It became public knowledge of the X-37 all the way back to 2010. So think about that. It goes all the way back to 2010, and they've been running these operations, and now that's what they revealed to the public. We have no idea. Neither does the adversaries. They have no idea, the technology, the capabilities the United States actually has. So there's going to be I think there's going to be a disclosure. I don't believe there's going to be a full disclosure about our technology and how we arrived at certain technology. They might not talk about that in particular, but they'll talk about UFOs, and I'm gonna let people know right now, the B-2 Spirit bomber aircraft, when I was working for NORAD back in the 70s, if I saw a B-2 bomber fly overhead, I wouldn't have been able to identify it. But we had the technology all the way back then. Okay, the first reveal was the F-117 Nighthawk, and they took a in the first hour of the Desert Storm, they took out the communication centers where Saddam Hussein's generals could not basically communicate with their generals out in the field, out on the front, or whatever, however you call it. So They lost all communication. So basically, and we took over air superiority in the first hour. That war was lost for Saddam Hussein and his forces in the first hour. Now, I'm not trying to glorify war. I'm a Christian kind of guy, and I was hoping for, that they can make uh, a deal, and I think Trump would have been the best thing they could ever do, to make a deal with President Trump, and he was going to let the regime stay in power. Now, I don't know, because of the threat, because these are state sponsors of terrorism, the IRGC, and Iran is state sponsors of terrorism. Now, remember, even the United Nations Security Council basically supported the sanctions against Iran from them obtaining nuclear weapons because of their threats. Like, you can't have a country have nuclear weapons that are out there chanting death to America, and their leader, their Ayatollah, is agreeing, saying yes. Now, I heard that with my own ears. I'm not going out there. I don't care who the Ayatollah is, whether if he did something that I don't believe he did or he didn't do, I wouldn't be out there lying about the man. Remember, he's just a man. That applies for all men, to include our president, but he's just a man. When you have a man that believes that he decides who lives and who dies, isn't that a man trying to put himself in the position of God? Remember what happened to Lucifer? Remember, that should be a lesson. That's Isaiah chapter 14. How have thou fallen, right? Lucifer, son of the morning, right? Remember Isaiah chapter 14? How have thou fallen, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Morning star, was it? Now, we know Yeshua's basically the bright and morning star, right? So, anyways, yeah, wanted to be like God, right? If you think about it, supreme, right? He's not my supreme leader. My supreme leader is God. And the only way for that guy to get to that level of mass murder, remember, that's international. That's not just mass murder, even in his own country. They killed tens of thousands of protesters. But you don't hear these people protesting against ICE and all that stuff to try to get these really bad criminals off our streets, to help make our streets safe again. You don't hear them talking about Iran. It's like they're allies with them. To me, what happened, and I went through that whole thing, far as how they were having propaganda in these like Wikipedia, like under the Beirut bombing. But you have to go down to where they actually, the judge um, um, awarded reparations to those that lost their lives, to their families, their loved ones, right? It was a award over $1 billion. So anyways, they got the money, and I talked about that last night in the live stream in pretty lengthy detail. So if you want to catch that, It was 3 hours long live stream. So, anyways, now let me see if I can see anything new pop up. I was really surprised. And to me, Israel basically decided to go ahead and make the preemptive strikes, and that's the way they term it. That's the way they're terming the strikes. So in Iran, they are strategic strikes to try to pinpoint the IRGC, their movements, whatever, and what their movements were leading up to the decision of the preemptive strike from Israel on Iran on the IRGC targets. Now, whatever supporting the IRGC targets, they're free game. They're free game. So Russia evacuated out their embassy in Tehran, I believe it was, on the 26th. It might have been the 27th, early in the morning, that time over that neck of the woods or whatever. But for sure, they were out yesterday before it got dark over there. They were already gone. They already took their flights out. And Vladimir Putin ordered that. Now, we have to be careful that we don't allow those people running the psyops against the American people to try to move us into, or try to move the president or anyone else into doing something that wouldn't be smart or very smart. It wouldn't be smart at all. So remember, there's nothing more that these people would like to have done is to lose their status as a superpower or economic superpower. Remember, a lot of these countries basically realigned their own economy to compete adversarial-like with the United States' economy. And this is what we're seeing a lot of times, right? And they're trying to draw us in like with a war between the United States and Russia, in my opinion, so they can kick back and watch two birds being killed with one stone. You know, that old saying, right? Killing two birds with one stone. They're trying to draw us into a war with Russia, right? And guess who's just sitting back quiet, just observing? What's that other major country? I referred to them earlier. They play the very long game, remember? And believe me, they're out for themselves. They're out for themselves. So hopefully they up the DEFCON. I don't know what the DEFCON's classified. We don't know what the DEFCON defense readiness condition posture is going to be, because that's classified. For those that are out there, I know some individuals made their own show online and called themselves DEFCON, right? You know what I mean? And they basically go out there and claim that they know what DEFCON it actually is. If they know what DEFCON it actually is, whoever gave them that information, whoever leaked that information, they can go to Leavenworth. Long time GI. That's an OPSEC violation. When you start talking about OPSEC, operational security, and you start identifying the movements of our troops, and leaking information like that, you can go to jail. Now, we're not talking about people that are watching the news like this channel here, like RH is, and spreading information as we get it, right? I'm not talking about, we're talking about people in the military or in high-level positions in our government, in Congress, leaking information. I remember one time that one of the major media stations was basically live and basically calling out IDF movements. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, they're out there, uh, uh, being what do you call it, spokesperson for a football game, like a radio announcer. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. When I saw that, I go, my gosh, you know, aiding and abetting terrorists. And talking about aiding and abetting terrorists, I talked about Barack Obama um, uh, basically unlocking $150 billion to Iran. And what did Iran do with that money? Well, they just strengthened their proxies, right? You saw all those missiles, all those rockets striking Israel. Remember October 7th when they went to war? Hamas, Hezbollah a little bit too, I guess. Iran was definitely involved, in my opinion. They were supplying the weapons to Hamas. So probably others were supplying. I wonder how much of the arsenal that Iran has now came from China and Russia. I'm wondering. I'm just curious. Thinking out loud, right? So, anyways, I hope inside our country, and this is what the Dems did. This makes me furious. I think they still shut down the government, right? Isn't they haven't refunded the Department of Homeland Security? Remember, whenever they got into, it's like they set up a Trump again in the kill box, or tried to, at Mar-a-Lago, because they had, I think they had a reduced manning. Those people aren't even getting paid yet. Now, I don't know if they opened back up, they funded the DHS or not, but that's the way. It's like Benny Thompson, the J6er, right? He wrote a bill to try to remove former President Donald Trump's uh, Secret Service detail to help protect him. Then that was after all the threats from Iran, putting death threats, death to America and death to the President Trump type statements, you know what I mean? Going back and forth. And that's how the Democrats work. So these people should be tried. I'm so sick of these people getting away with literally with treason. And we saw the real insurrection at the State of the Union address. That person unhinged and screaming. I don't even want to mention the person's name. And then the other guy that had to be kicked out, right, with a sign. That was an insurrection. That was an official government State of the Union address during a joint session of Congress. Senators and congressional representatives were there. Now, a lot of the Dems didn't show up, the demons, right? A lot of them didn't show up, or some of them didn't show up. I don't know how many refused to go and boycotted it, whatever, right? Whether they like it or not, in times like these, they need to stand behind our president until this is all settled down. They need to open back up and fund the DHS. And if they don't, they should all, I don't care how many of them it is. I don't care if it's 400 of them. I could care less. I'd start putting them in handcuffs and hauling them away. taking them to military tribunals. I'm so sick of these people. Now, if they opened up a hole, just like their invasion that they helped facilitate and direct for 4 years, which included a foreign military and terrorist insurgency into our country. And during these times, they knew this time was going to happen, right? So what's going to have to happen? I don't know if the DHS was funded again, if they open it back up again, but I think there's still a lot of people working for without pay. Now, this is the seventh day, and I didn't think that it was going to be on the seventh day. And see, since it's the seventh day, just like October 7th, October 7th was basically the Sabbath, right? And it was the seventh day rest, right? And plus it was a holiday, right? They were celebrating, so they had skeleton crews on duty, right? So they're attacked from the south, and normally the threat normally lies to the north, right? Where you got Hezbollah, you got Hamas, like the proxies. Normally those attacks don't occur on Israel, far as from those proxies in southern Israel, but they did. And for them to know those strategic ways to basically attack. Now, I hope this wasn't to draw Israel out in the daylight. I don't know, but believe me, they have boots on the ground surveillance in Iran, intel from Iran itself, I'll just leave it there. Very, very accurate and timely intel they're getting inside Iran and what was going on. So they were possibly, now I saw where they tested an ICBM. Now I don't know, I'm talking Iran, IRGC, the Ayatollah, whatever, was testing an ICBM. Now I don't know if that was propaganda or whatever, or if it was just a ballistic missile without the range of an ICBM. ICBM is intercontinental ballistic missile. Okay? So intercontinental ballistic missile. So those can strike the United States, it can strike the UK, other continents other than the continent that Iran was at, the Asia, the Middle East, right? So yes, I believe it's considered Asia. So anyways, man, I need to hone up on my geography, right? So thank you for being here and listening. And now there's not a sane person in the world that wanted to see this war happen. But as I talked about in the scriptures in Genesis chapter 9, basically after Noah's Ark came to rest in the mountains of Ararat, God basically commanded Noah, his wife, Shem and his wife, Japheth and his wife, and Ham and his wife, that anyone takes the life of another man, sheds his blood, his life will be taken. That's the commandment. And I read Numbers chapter 35, verse 30, what we do to a murderer, and explains the difference between killing, an accidentally killing, and a murderer. It has to be the mouth of at least two witnesses, right? And look how many witnesses we have for what they did to our Blue Helmet peacekeeping Marines in Beirut during the Beirut bombing. Look at that. And these people have gotten away with that ever since. That was mass murder. And that was a justified operation. So, who was the facilitator of it? I talked about that in depth yesterday, 3 hours. We cannot have a rogue country just going out there murdering people because whatever, they don't like the way they talk or whatever. You know, so they had their chance to make a deal. Now, war, like President Trump says, it can be good and it can be bad. I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting him. He made some statements that are they're logical and they're understandable. So let me get over to Rumble. While you're here, I know there's only a few people based on especially the time. 3:41 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I wasn't expecting this. I was really surprised, and I was going through, you know, the YouTube channels and looking to see before I went to sleep, right? And I saw that pop up from Fox News first, and I go, "Oh my God!" And I had to get up and had to look at I can get a better view of what time, what day that live stream came out. I was totally not expecting it. And this is my opinion. It was just like the officials in Israel said it was, like the Minister of Defense, or however they call the defense, we call it like Secretary of Defense. Their Minister of Defense, I think they call it over in Israel, basically called it preemptive strikes against Iran. So they were gonna attack Israel on the Sabbath day. Sabbath day. So who's leading the IRGC? The person that's leading those strikes from Iran are disobeying the commandment of God. They're disobeying the commandment of God, just like they did on October 7th. So don't tell me about how God-fearing good people those people are that are actually terrorists. I don't want to hear it. And I know I'm a man. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to be the guy that go out there to throw the first stone at anybody. But if one comes to murder, yes, I can throw that stone. I know what I've done in my lifetime. And it sure as wasn't supporting murderers or being part of a murderer anywhere. Remember, this is a law and order channel. I don't support criminal violence at all. I do support national defense and self-defense. And sometimes you have to be violent when you're acting in self-defense or national defense. You have to be violent to thwart the attack, to thwart the attackers, to remove the threat. And as long as these people are still out there in charge, they are a threat. And I don't care what anybody says about that statement. And I could care less who that person is that doesn't agree with me. I know I'm right by God by saying that. And I'm using God's word, his own words, to make that statement. Thou shalt not murder, period. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not steal, like steal our technology, right? Runner's got himself in some big problems. Former pilot of a F-35. He's going to have some real problems. I don't know. He might get the capital punishment for treason. by leaking information, highly classified information about the F-35 and A-10s. Okay? So I just read about that yesterday. So President Trump already made a statement. So I hope he's in a protected facility. I talked about the hardened facility, place you camp out, right? So I hope he has plenty of security, and so troops are deployed. I don't know what the DEFCON's going to be, but they should up our local law enforcement should be basically on alert, right, to basically help protect infrastructure and looking out, basically keeping an eye on, keeping surveillance on, and just looking out for things that are out of place, right? And I hope they do that. This is not a joke. Remember, we've already talked about who they allowed to come in, who they facilitated and directed to come into our country. And we know who they are. We haven't caught all of them yet. There's still, remember, there's about 15 million, maybe 20 million people that they brought in during their invasion that they helped facilitate and direct. To help part of that was to help try to rig the elections, to basically give all these people amnesty and overthrow the United States of America. There's nothing constitutional about that. I don't care if you this Chief Justice at the U.S. Supreme Court. I don't care if your name is John Roberts. You don't like that statement? Too bad. I'm kind of sick of this political crap that these guys have been playing in our Supreme Court, especially when it comes to them saying that 18 states in our union have no standing in our own elections. We're talking about tens of millions of people in 18 states in our country that basically formed a class action lawsuit about the swing states that wasn't even following their own state laws regarding elections, let alone federal laws. And they got away with it. Now that's aiding and abetting right there. That's what the enemies of the United States want to see. And a lot of those people were put in office fraudulently, and a lot of their campaigns were funded by foreign sources. Support, defend the Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, and have true faith and allegiance to the same. Not to any other country, not to a third world country. And I won't mention her name, the insurrectionist that was at the State of the Union. There's no sense even bringing the person's name up. It's disgusting. Screaming at the president. What about all the MAGA people that were, or American First people that were there to peacefully protest the elections on J6? They threw them in prison, right? There was no regard for their rights or their due process of law rights. There was no regards to that at all. They rigged the punishment, everything. How many of those people were held accountable? Or they're just fired from the job. That was it. You know, false imprisonment is at least a misdemeanor. But if there's a broader criminal conspiracy, a broader conspiracy against rights, there's no statute of limitations on that, as far as I understand. There's so much criminality going on that our law enforcement's overtasked. They could, even if they were funded, there's so much of it that it's almost impossible. And look how long it takes. And that's the reason why it's taken so long. It didn't take them long to falsely accuse Trump of all these things, right? And arrest him. How many times they arrest him? 3 times, right? 3 times. How many depositions did he have to make? All based on wrap-up smears, libel, slander, false witnessing, right? Majority of it. And some of the things they said he was guilty with, that there was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't illegal to begin with. Remember, we haven't forgot about Letitia James either. What about her? She's quiet because she knows she's in the wrong. She knows she's caught. Like, and it doesn't matter what skin tan they have or they don't have. I could care less right now. I never really cared about that. It's about the character of the individual. So let's see here. Get over to Rumble. I might have to refresh. Pardon me, those that are over on Rumble, if the live stream needs to be refreshed. Wow. Let me get to gotta refresh. Have to refresh Rumble real quick. So it says we're live still. There's 9 viewers. Welcome, Shumen. Oh, you think it's to take down Shumen? Are you from the UK or Britain? No, I'm just kind of misunderstanding. Yeah, it's kind of early in the morning. I was about to hit the hay there, and I saw that around 11 p.m. No, 11 a.m. in the morning over there, Iranian time. It was right around 3 a.m. my time here, or right before 3 a.m. when I saw that come out on Fox News, breaking news, right? So again, I'm just going to recap real quick what I was talking about. Now, if you haven't been following this channel, please follow this channel. They throttled this channel back greatly. I'm talking about back in just a few years ago, I was having thousands of viewers, and I like to make one statement. Just because I use the Hebrew name of the Son of Man or Son of God, okay, doesn't mean I'm trying to divide up Christianity. That's the total opposite of what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I won't get into that anymore. I talked about it last night. Provide source references directly from the Bible and, the language and all that kind of thing and the history of it. So I can't say anymore. But a lot of people get really offended, and they're used to hearing things which they customarily have heard all their life. And so it's kind of like you're remember when Yeshua said, "Come up, follow me, I'll teach you how to be fishermen of men." You know, so anyways, there's no way I would like to try to weaken. That's not anywhere my attention to weaken anyone's faith in God or Christian, their faith in Christianity. Now, I identify myself as a Christian, so I'll just let it stand there. Okay. So I talked about that 3 hours in a 3 hours live stream last night uh, before I was I was about right ready to go to bed, and I saw that pop up on Fox News about let's see, about an hour ago now. So, anyways, thank you for everyone being here. And now, again, a real quick recap. Now, this is my opinion, and this opinion is based off of 21 years active duty. Worked in NORAD, worked in special duty assignments, working for NATO assignments, being stationed overseas active duty for 17 years and 10 months of my 21 years active duty. So basically, from what I see, we all know, well, we know, Christians know that, and many of us, like myself, we basically recognize the seventh day rest that God sanctified. Okay. He sanctified that. So I still try to basically follow that. Okay. That law, because that is one of the 10 commandments that I try to follow and the best I can. So, anyways, um, I do believe that they were using the seventh day rest because those of the Jewish faith, they follow that commandment, and a lot of them are more they follow that commandment strongly, a lot stronger than a lot of us do in the West, right? So that be a perfect time for who? Who's leading them? It tells you right there. At least it tells me, and that's the same tactic they used on October 7th, remember? That was not only a Sabbath day, a day of rest for Israel when Iran and their proxies, Gaza and Hezbollah, attacked Israel. They also had a holiday. That was a holiday weekend, right? And that's why they chose that day. And they were not prepared. They were not prepared. Israel was not prepared. I won't get into all the theories, and some of these theories are just, you know, yeah, trust but verify, right? So they'll verify that. And anyways, So I do believe the intel sources that Israel had showed movement by the IRGC and the Iranian military and probably other armed entities in Iran. They were moving, they might have been moving fuel and getting certain types of weapon systems out there on the pad. Now, I don't know how far they've gone, but remember, three allies that support Iran are nuclear powers: Russia, China, and North Korea. So all these years, all this playing around, playing these tricks and lying about why they are enriching uranium. And so they thought they're going to get away with it, right? Now, I don't trust China or Russia as far as I can throw them into all of this. If they are involved, they will pay the price in a appropriate way. Not that we're going to try to start World War III, but we know that they are arming Iran, and Iran has been arming Russia with their suicide drones. So I'm pretty sure we're prepared for that, but you can't prepare for the unknown, right? There are some unknowns, and there, everyone isn't perfect, and we have to look at malfunctions of equipment, malfunctions, that kind of thing. There's a lot of things that, and I think we war game those out in our combat training exercises. I remember we did when I was on active duty. We had these certain types of scenarios, right, that we war gamed out, and so we had even have what they call aggressor teams. They, they used Russian tactics as far as air combat is concerned, aerial combat maneuvers, and that kind of thing. So, well, I brought the news, and I'm going to get back to looking at what's actually going a little bit, and then I'm going to try to get some shut eye because I'm really tired and getting to be an old. Well, somebody said I'm older than the opposite of heaven. Okay, there's heaven and there's what, right? I was like, I wasn't expecting that. Cousin out there, my cousin, right? Looks at me and says, "Man, you're looking older than the opposite of." That wasn't a very polite thing to say. So what did I do to my cousin? I don't remember doing anything bad to my cousin. So my own cousin. That's just kind of like a way to a term of endearment, I guess. You old man. He's not much younger than myself. So not much younger than myself. I think he's never mind. I won't reveal his age. So okay. No, 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 no. What are you doing? All right. So again, real quick, I do believe that intel, the surveillance that Israel has in Iran, they picked up movements of the IRGC that they're gonna strike Israel on the Sabbath day, the seventh day of rest, right? Just like they did on October 7th. October 7th was not only a seventh day of rest, but it was also a holiday weekend. Okay. That's when they struck, right? And Iran was part of that strike, along with Hamas and Hezbollah, from my understanding, going back to October 7th. Okay, so and The intel that Israel had, remember, they have boots on the ground in Iran. They picked up movements of the IRGC, and I do believe, and the defense minister of Israel basically said it was a preemptive strike to stop the ongoing positioning of Iran, IRGC in particular, of they were in motion. So, and I do believe they weren't expecting it, but they were watching around the clock, making sure that they didn't make a move first, and so they decided to implement a preemptive strike to help protect the Israelis and the people in Israel that are living there and people in the region. Remember that. Remember that. To help protect the innocent in the region, no matter who they are, whether they're in Saudi Arabia or United Emirates, wherever, Qatar, you name it. Okay. And of course, our presence there in the Middle East and the bases that we have in Iraq and Kuwait and in that area, in that region, and the contractors we have working there as well. Okay, so with that said, please pray to our Heavenly Father. Heavenly Father, please put a hedge of protection around our country, around our leaders, our president, each and every one of us, and everyone basically risking their lives to basically stop a state terrorist organization from doing any more harm to any more people, right? And that they are basically going to receive the proper justice they deserve. And hopefully there's minimal bloodshed, Heavenly Father, that basically you divinely intervene to stop these mass murderers from murdering again. Please put a hedge of protection around Israel, our allies, and even those that aren't really per se our allies, but are maybe in a different sense of a term of competitors, maybe economic. Put a hedge of protection around them as well. And don't let evil win. Please, Heavenly Father, don't let evil win. Stop the murderers so they can't murder again, especially the mass murderers. Stop every murderer so they can't murder again. That said, good morning, good day, good evening, and that's an amen, okay? Put a hedge of protection, Heavenly Father, around each and every one of us, and even the Iranian people that are just victims of circumstance. With that said, good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you're from. This concludes the live stream. And remember about team spirit, what spirit or team we need to be on. That's in John chapter 17. Okay, good night.